Hey YouTube, we're here with the Sunbird 1.6 meter. Got some flaps, split flaps on here, and we added an extra linkage here to go from the left flap to the right flap, so that when the flaps are deployed we have a little bit better evenness. Seems to have worked well. I took it out for just a short, like 2-minute flight this afternoon just to verify. I added one other rubber band on either side, and that helped a lot with stability on the wing as well. And we did get you guys a remade after the flaps, but now that I've re-stiffened them and I know that it's going to work, I was able to land from maybe 100 feet straight up. I would say I was going down at about 65-70 degrees straight down with flap deployment, and I slowed it down and landed it right at my feet, which was really cool because it was super windy, and I like the approach path, so I took it, which is why I used the crow and flaps like on the FMS, actually on the ASW28 ST models as well. And then on the Arcus, I've got the spoilers, which are super effective, and Consendo, I've added flaps on that. Bird of Time, we've got the spoiler-ons. All these planes would have been really hard to land in a short field. So anyway, wanted to show you my next step here. My next step on this is going to be getting some lighting on it, because it flies like a daydream. I want to take advantage on more than just daylight hours, so you can hit it at twilight hours too. A couple quick thoughts. Obviously, forward visibility, reverse visibility. You want to see from forward or backward. You want to see from up and down as much as possible. And balsa wood planes are a little bit more challenging than a foam wing, because the foam will pass the light through the actual foam, whereas on this type of fuselage you're not going to see through it because it's an opaque color for monocoat, and it's also a skinned. It's got balsa wood ply on the outside. And for the wings, the same thing. Even if you use a translucent covering, you still got wood on the tips. So my plan is to go ahead and probably favor the light in somewhere like here. And my objective is to pass the light with as minimal impact to structural integrity, which is very critical on this one, because this one is not the strongest plane. And I want to try to get the wire back to here, and then we can try to tap the power that's on the servos. So we got the soldering iron hot, and we're going to see what we can do to make this awesome. Now I've got some new LEDs today. Turnigy sells these 1 meter at a time. We got white, green, and red. And got these LEDs here. I was just printed this document out a long time ago. It just helps me guide. So I'll just take my marker, and I always just make sure I'm marking the right side, because it's real. I always follow the standard methodology for lighting. So we basically want the red over here. This just helps me remember where I want to put them. And that other green is really light. Mark this one just real quick. And then on the tail, I want to do some sort of a white light to help with 3 points of orientation is humongous. 2 points of orientation helps, but you have to have enough forward movement to really be able to tell, and especially with a glider, you may be almost stationary in the air. So one of the reasons I went for these is that I got a batch from my buddy as a replacement for stuff I had used on a previous project, and I just don't like them. They're a pain in the butt to work with. The white work okay, but I don't like separating them out. They're just really difficult to separate effectively. These old ones I used to be able to separate super easy. I had a near 100% success rate pulling those things out and using them. And so I really liked them, except then I ran out of one of the colors, so I wanted to try to match them. And these are the ones that were horrible. These ones work okay if you use the 3 at a time and you run them on 12 volts, but I usually want to run them on the receiver voltage, which is going to be like 5 volts or 5.5 volts. Then of course I have to put my own resistance in there, which I use the resistors here, and there's some more resistors back there. And I set them up on a breadboard for a test. So, incidentally, I also got these from the same buddy, and they work out really, really good. The only difference is I don't have white. So I have the red and the green. And there's also blue, but I don't use blue. And so these work really nice for white, but they're a pain in the butt to open up. These actually came off of an industrial sign, and they're very, very bright. And because they're so bright, I only ever need to use one, whereas with these junky ones, a lot of times I'll be using 2 or 3 of them, but I'm still running them directly off the receiver voltage. So anyway, when you see these and they're super thin like that, meaning thin like this dimension, they're just junky. These trifecta ones are really good. I like them a lot. But I don't know where my buddy got those. So, and then of course you can just go out to Radio Shack and get stuff there too. So anyway, let me show you what the new ones look like. This is what 1 meter of LED strip looks like. Isn't that crazy? And I mean, the stuff that my friend gave me, this was like well over half of his package. But if it sucks, who cares, right? So what is this? This is red. So we might as well go ahead and break it open. These are about $5 each, which in hindsight, kind of a rip-off if you compare the different colors. But these are not the weather-resistant ones either, which I don't really care. It's a pain in the butt. I got to take that stuff off when I separate these out. Let's just show you. Red are the worst for, you have to use, I don't know if they're just like less energy efficient or what the deal is. But you have to use a lot more resistance. Or a lot less resistance to get the same output. I'm just going to grab a throwaway 3-cell battery. No, we got a 3-cell over there already. Sorry guys. Here's a 3-cell. So what I can do is I can actually just hook this circuit up, energize my breadboard. I'm going to go ahead and see how bright that is. It's like really bright. I'm going to just separate that. So the way the breadboard works, if you don't know, is just you jumper leads. And then these strips are all hooked up together. And then these strips are hooked up together, provided you jumper them. We go red to black. Very simple setup. Now remember, this is at 12 volts, so we're not going to be running our circuit at 12 volts, but this will give you an idea of what the LEDs are capable of. It's pretty bright. Well, they certainly don't give anything away. Not that they should. They say it's a meter. They give you a meter. I'm not going to complain about that. It's just kind of strange because it's right on, you know. Okay, so that's red. And you can tell because they use different resistors, because these things aren't usually labeled. So the way I do it is I will take, and I'll leave those hooked up on the end from the factory in case I decide to use them. I don't have to dink around with it. You cut off 3 at a time, usually, because I'll put 3 of these, and then there's a cut point, so it's labeled. So that'll give us 3 red lights. Those are probably bright enough to work with. So we'll use red on the one wing, we'll use green on the other wing, then we'll use white on the tail. I don't know if I'm going to do it on the rudder. It's a lot of work to do it on the rudder, but it's sure cool. I did a white light on this. I actually did 2 of those really big white lights from the industrial lighting. They worked really nicely. But then like on this one, since it's such a small tail, in terms of thickness, I don't know if I can get away with it. And I do have a flat surface here, so I could hypothetically put it right there. I could put a couple of those right next to each other. It would work really nice. You can see there where I cut the monocoat to open up the size of the clearance for the rudder. The other thing is I could use this little plate to mount a light right on the backside, because the idea is you want the light to orient where you are. As you're flying towards you, you won't necessarily see it, but as you're flying away from yourself, you will. At least that's the way I want it. You could also have white lights pointed at you, but just keeping in mind that when you're pointed at you, you know, your green and your red lights. Hold on a second, was there something else in there? Oh, it's just got a little red dot on it. There's a red dot on there too, though, so. Then this one's going to be the green. Nope, that's green. So we'll go ahead and test the green real quick here. Again, guys, this is available at Hobbyking. Part numbers are right here. This one's the red. Red. This one's green. And then these ones are white. I don't know if you guys can see that little circle there. But we'll see if they work well. Let's go ahead and, oh look, they used a green wire. That was kind of a smart idea. So you can quickly differentiate. That's not a good thing to do to your scissors, by the way. Okay, so the green's going to go to the positive, and the black's going to go to negative. You see how bright those are, guys? Plus, this is more of like an aqua green. I can certainly live with that, but I would have preferred it to be more of like a green. That's a little bit more bluish green. But, and it's kind of hard to tell in the video, I realize, but just a preference thing, not a big issue. Okay, so we'll roll this out. Grab scissors, look for the first cut point, which is here. Go ahead and cut it. And you'll notice there's a different level of resistance on this. This one's 131 ohms for the 3. And this one is 333 for the 3. So I'm going to go ahead and mark them, because I'm probably not going to use all 3. That one's green, this one's red. Okay. And half the battle when you're doing this crap is just trying to keep things tidy as you work, or you'll be tripping over your own mess all the time. Hey, look at this. There's specs. What does this say? Oh, look at that. That's fancy. I've never actually seen drawings like this. That's cool. Absolute rating. Okay. That's awesome, guys. I'll just focus it on either side, and you guys can pause it if you want to read any of this. Not that it makes a humongous difference, but that's pretty cool. Usually you don't get that information when you buy. It's hilarious because all the times that you buy something from Hobbyking that's extremely complex to set up, and then you have no clue and you just have to know, which is super annoying for people that are new in the hobby, like me. Or, well, I was, I guess. I don't know if I'm still considered to be new in the hobby. But the idea is you get something that's kind of complex and you have nobody to help you to hook it up, which is really annoying. Okay, so this is what you're going to do now that you've got that thing pulled off, the little strip cut off, okay? A couple different ways you can do this. You can just stick a blade under there. That's one way. The second way you can do it is you can cut away the material from behind it. I found the easier way is to go ahead and heat up the soldering iron. Make sure your wire's not all tangled up. Clean it. Get a little bit of solder on there just so it's not dry. And then usually I'll take and hold this, pinching it from side to side, or taking and pushing it down. get in there, get that solder hot, try to fold back. See how it's turning green? That's pretty cool. And this is where you just kind of gotta work fairly quick and get them separated. And it's not always as easy as it looks. I don't think I technically really make this look super easy, but I'm gonna actually, this time I'm gonna try to wiggle this under just to get a little bit of an edge. Okay, so once I got it under there, this time I'm gonna push. The stuff is a little stronger than I'm used to. The backing material is what I mean. Okay, so you see how the backing material's separating now finally? Okay, good, I got it to separate. And the problem is you end up heating up the LED a lot, and so you'll have some premature failures on these if you're not careful, if you overdo it. So that's labeled as positive too, which is super handy. So I've actually taken, I usually label the minus side so it's always the correct color. So I'll just take this marker, I'll just mark along this side black for negative, because that's where we need to put our resistor, is between the ground side of the circuit and the negative side of the LED. It has to do with the emitter and the collector, which is the two different halves of the LED. I just touched my finger, but I didn't even feel it. Just my body moved it quick enough. Okay, there we go. There it is. Okay, so now it's separated from the strip. And you can see it's a little toasty right now. Big surprise, right? So now what I need to do is I need to get some wire. I'm going to grab some, come right back. Okay, so these wires, I get these bundles out of serial and parallel patch cables. Preferably like 25 pin or more, because then you'll get just a ton of them. And the thing that's cool is you got all these different pairs of colors potentially. And so that's really handy. When you go to choose a color, then you can just kind of wind off what you think you want. And these are almost always long enough to reach, depending on how big your plane is, of course. But if you're really going for lightness, so you just slip that out of the bundle. And you got a black and a green. You can also get these little computer level cables. Those are super small, but they're not real long. Good for UMXs. And then you can get this wire that's made for windings on motors, and that's super, super, super light. But in this application, we can add a couple grams. It's not going to cause a big problem. So the first thing I do is strip back just a little bit. Now, if you plan on using multiple LEDs, then you're going to want to strip a little bit more. And I am not 100% sure how many I want to use on this yet, just because this is a new LED. If you intend to get real far away from yourself, you're going to want to use more than one LED. Okay, so we're just going to get our solder so we can tin this wire. Jeez. And guys, I know I told you I was going to try to get a maiden of the new Cirrus, but it's just crappy out there. We rebuilt the Delta Ray this morning. All the electronics in my buddy's Delta Ray. So now we got a Lemon RX 7 channel with stabilization. We worked out all the different controls for running the differential thrust and throttle cut, which is really complicated when you use differential thrust. Okay, so just clean the tip there, guys. So now remember we marked which side was positive and which side was negative. So I'm actually going to flip this LED over. I'm just going to get a little bit of fresh solder on here. Oops, sorry guys. And then I'm just going to hold this where I want it, and then touch the solder. That's a pretty good size LED compared to what I'm used to on some of these projects I've done. Makes it, whoo! You don't want them to stick to the soldering iron like that. You'll melt them real quick. And that thing wanted to stick to the soldering iron bad. Sometimes if they do that, you can take tape, turn it inside out on itself, and then just let it kind of hold it down. And I hate soldering these little things because you don't have to do the same things you would with a little bit bigger work. You have to let the solder wick into the work on a bigger piece. On these, you just, whatever gets it to stick is fine, because you're going up to a surface as opposed to a wire. Now this is going to be really hot on my fingertip when I do this, but I'm going to grin and bear it for a second because it's only going to be for a fraction of a second, I hope. And it was only for a fraction of a second. Okay, so now we can do some quick testing and see how bright we can get this. Now what I want to do is I want to simulate my ESC voltage with that, okay, by going to the 2S instead of the 3S. So that's a little 3S pack. I'm just going to the first for ground, second, third for my 2S, and then the fourth would be for 3S, which would be 12 volts. The 2S is going to be less because it's just 2 cells in series. So that gives us the ability to test real similar to what the voltage of a receiver is going to be without actually having a receiver in the equation. Now at some point we might go ahead and put the receiver voltage in it, but at this point we're not quite there yet. We're just still trying to vet this application to see if one LED is enough before we start really investing the time in it. You're thinking, good Lord, Brian, this is 23 minutes in. You've already made a pretty big time investment. You're right, I have. Okay, so don't go straight across your power source. You would have burned it out if you would have made contact there, so I should have been a little more careful. Now I need to go to probably something like, this is 100 ohm, quarter watt, I believe. And let's just get in there, you little turd. See, I don't actually have it connected yet, so it's not turned on yet. I'd have to do this first. And there it goes. It's working, guys. See, on, off, on, off, on, off. Not crazy bright or anything, but it's not super dim either. Oh, yeah, so I would say let's try a smaller resistor in this case. Just move this stuff off to the side. We could try 10 ohms is like way too small. I don't know, we'll just try a 100 ohm resistor. I thought that's what we were using, but we evidently aren't. Must be more than that. So we're going to go between ground and our negative side on the LED. Okay, so then it's pretty intense. I can live with that. See, and then you'll put drips of CA over that to make it, so you can see how bright that is when it lights up the cloth. So now we're just going to feel for temperature. Bearing in mind, this is going to be just slightly brighter on this configuration than it will on the real configuration because it's got just a little bit higher voltage. Now the other thing you're going to feel for is temperature of the LED as it runs. If it gets too hot, then you need to increase the level of resistance or decrease the voltage, and increasing the resistance is a lot easier, which technically makes the voltage divider circuit work to reduce the voltage. Okay, thus the LED becomes cooler. And this one's a little on the toasty side. I would say that 100 is probably too much. It's not hot, but I don't want to risk it. Let's go to let's try 220 ohms. Okay, so just put that same resistor right across to the ground. It's still bright. It's not crazy bright. Probably can live with that. But this is an 1/8 of a watt resistor, so it's going to allow the light to be hotter, and it's going to allow the resistor itself to get hotter. Oh, I thought that was a light. I was going to say that'd be sweet. That's actually from a light, from the white ones. Okay, we're going to let that cook for a minute. Now for the red, we're going to do the same exact thing. So we're going to find one of these. It doesn't matter which one. Looks like we'll start on this end just because that's where I happen to grab to. Just going to run that blade of the screwdriver up under there. Now the other option is you can rip these off, but just you'll break some of these LEDs doing that. So take your marker, give it a little mark. Now that has that little angled piece over there, and that usually means the negative side as well, but sometimes these things don't always follow that protocol. Let's see if these do. It's hard to tell because it got heated up to the point where it's not readable. Still not overly hard. That's good, guys. Okay, so cleaning the tip, and we're going to get this red LED off. Okay, so I'm going to just break this negative side off first. That went a lot smoother that time, guys. Woo, that's hot. This backing is like way stronger than I'm used to for these LEDs. Double-edged sword, you know. I didn't burn myself there, I just dropped the stuff. And if you're thinking there's an easier way, there probably is. The other easier way is I usually go under it with a knife like this, and then I use the knife for pressure. But, you know, it's still a knife. You can still cut yourself. And X-Acto knives tend not to be terribly forgiving. Okay, so just getting up under there. I'm going to try a second method where I can kind of push down on the table. Put something heavy on it so that it stays put-ish. And then you can pry up a little bit with the blade at an angle. Okay, so that actually lifted it pretty decent. Okay, so I got it lifted. You can see that it's separated from the film there. So now you can fold the film in half. Now, I'm going to show you the other trick. The other trick is to grab your wire once you've kind of vetted that it's going to work for your application. And then you're just going to check the general length. This length can go all the way across the whole wing and then have slack. We're only going to be going to the servo if all goes as planned. So really, I think I want to, at minimum, I'm going to cut this in half. I would rather waste a little bit of this cable and make sure I got enough to make it to the main fuselage. So I'm going to pull this to the center. Well, they're not the same length. Whatever, that's good enough. Then I'm going to clip it. And then I can use the same wire for the red and the green, because I really don't care what colors they are at this point. I just want to get these things wired up. Okay, so we can unplug our power to that. And so here's the trick. This is the positive side. This is the negative side, just the same as before. Twist your leads if you can, so they don't go fraying on you. Ooh, that was bad. That was a bad splice. I lost too many pieces of copper there. Okay, so now I'm going to take my hot iron. And while this is separated like that, you can take and tin this lead and then get half your soldering done while it's held down. Makes it just a little bit heavier, which means sometimes you get a little bit of an advantage to getting in the connection. See? Just like that. Which is pretty cool. Problem is, sometimes it's not quite enough to undo the other side. Okay, so yeah, that one worked way better. And then the colored side will go on the other half, so hypothetically there shouldn't be that much heat that conducts. Alright guys, we're going to run out of memory here, so I'm going to wrap it up. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. The LEDs will continue on this channel.